Hey, thank you so much for coming to the Revitalized Church. As you can see, I'm not in my normal setting, doing something on location with Pastor Jamie Barfield. He actually offered up to use his studio when we came here to do this, and as you can tell, this is so much nicer than what I have. Everything this church does, they do with excellence. I slipped in last night and watched a service here. I came for an hour of prayer, an hour of a service. They're calling it their revival, and y'all, this is not just words, it's the truth. And so I vouch for what we're talking about today. I did my homework on this place. We're talking about church culture. That is the great equalizer amongst churches of every size. So if you're watching this right now saying, I don't have anything in common with him, I've only got a handful of people in my church, this topic relates to you, and this pastor can relate to you because he's been there. So Pastor Jamie, I'm so excited to be here. I came in last night. This place is it's amazing.
Thank you,
you
man.
just gave me the tour. We walked around, and when you walk up to this church, I've got to tell this. The first time I ever
Please.
came here, I came to a conference here, and Palmetto Pointe is on the right, and Medieval Times is on the left. And I walked in. I said, you know what? With this kind of atmosphere, this kind of setting, this church better bring it. And you do.
Thank you.
You do. You lived up to the hype, if hype is a good word.
Thank you.
But we're talking about culture and about how we can translate our churches, how we reach our people, how we talk to our people, how we lead our people. And so it's such an awesome opportunity to see somebody share that message, but they're living it out.
Yeah.
So before we get started, tell everybody why you connect so much, where you came from, how you got here,
Yeah.
and a little bit about who you are.
First off, thanks for the invite, man. You're definitely Facebook famous. Definitely excellent ministries of the Church of God famous.
Oh my goodness,
So
we don't want to. Yeah, more people know me than I realize. We get here today, and
Like,
you tell,
"Will Herb, oh my goodness."
you tell the staff this is Will, and they look at me and like, that guy.
So thank you.
Don't go back and research that, please.
So thank you for this opportunity. So for me, my story is we started with 8 people inside of a double wide trailer. And that doesn't mean like I lived in a double wide trailer and that's, in my living room. No, we literally had a gutted out church, a gutted out double wide trailer that was turned into a church, had 8 people the first Sunday. Service was so good, 6 people the next week. And I thought 100 people were going to show up at our first service. Church planting is not easy. And so over the last 18 years, we have seen God move from 8 people inside of a double wide trailer to where we are today. And so I told you at breakfast this morning, I've been everywhere. I've done everything inside of the local church to where I know wherever a guy is inside of ministry, I've experienced that same thing. I've walked through those same hurdles, been through those same battles. Walking from 8 people to where we are today, culture is something that, I know you wanted to talk to today. It's something that has been protected that we didn't even know we were protecting it at the time. It's something that we fought for. And, it took us 4 years to ever break 100. The first day I broke 138 people left the church the next day.
Wow.
We've launched accidentally from church splits, multiple churches that have, had a little pot of people that got angry and took 100 people away with them and started churches out in the world, down the road. And man, it's a weird place to be at today, to where revitalization is something that we're working through with campus ministry. I know we had that argument online one time with campus ministry. But it's something that we're working through with revitalization even now, trying to help other churches, because, man, the world needs us. Christ has put us here to change the world. The world needs us, and we need a healthy church. And so if there's any wisdom that I have today that can help somebody else, I'm all about it, man, whatever I can do to help.
Yeah, and I think that was an interesting conversation we had at breakfast. When you're talking about the church campus argument that we had.
Yeah.
There's a mindset out there, and I love how you explained it to me and clarified, and we'll get into this topic, but about how it's not just taking over a campus now. There's some that are doing that.
Yeah.
But y'all are more about going there, how can we heal this campus?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, let's be honest, if we're talking revitalization, if you're going to revive something, that means it's dying.
It's dying.
And so you got to heal it, and I love how you're installing a culture and a healthy culture in there. So before we dive too much into that, what is culture? Like, you know what I'm saying? That's the buzzword now, because it's coming out. Everybody says culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yep.
And everybody has a strategy.
Yep.
From the guy with 5 people in his church to 5,000, he has
sure.
a strategy. But it doesn't always work.
Yep.
And I think that's why revitalization fails sometimes is you may have a culture, the people don't accept it because it starts with us at the top. Pastors can say this is going to be who we are, and the people can say yes or no. They don't have to accept it.
Yep.
And I think one thing pastors need to know is, hey, man, they're not always going to get it. That's a hard thing. I think sometimes when Jesus said, sometimes you got to dust your feet off.
Absolutely.
How do we – so, all right, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Let me say
what
this.
is culture? What are we trying
Strategy, process, procedure, mission, and vision, all amazing, all needed in the local church. But if all of those will get eaten by culture.
All right, so what is that culture?
Culture is the unwritten rules inside of a ministry.
So describe that. What is culture? And you can use Palmetto Pointe as an example. Like, what are you saying when you describe that?
We have now, through 18 years, written culture, but they were unwritten rules for 18 years to where we knew that if someone was creating division inside of our church, we knew we were going to fight for unity. How did we get to that place? Was me banging the drum constantly that we're fighting for division. I mean, for unity. We're fighting for unity. We're fighting for unity. So we're seeing stuff on social media. Hey, listen, let them do what they're gonna do. We're fighting for unity. And I'm just constantly banging this drum of unity. So much to the place to where I look at people and say, I love you. I appreciate you. I'm glad you're a part of this church. But if this is such an issue here, if this is how you're going to act, I'm not going to do the gossip, the backbiting. I'm not going to do the churchy stuff where we God bless you, but in reality we're talking about you in small group. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show up at the small group and say, this is not how we act. This is not how we treat each other. You can't write that in mission or vision or process or strategy. That's something that has to be lived out every single day from the pastor through your staff or through your leadership and into the church. You live unity out every single day. If they see you talking junk about somebody inside of your church, guess what? Your culture says this is what we do. Your culture says I'm allowed to go behind closed doors. As long as it's us, close friends here, we're allowed to talk junk about the pastor.
Right.
No. That's not what we do. And again, every culture is different. My culture and your culture and the person watching this, their verbiage is going to be completely different. But unwritten rules around me is you're not going to talk junk about somebody else. Because I'm going to say, hey, we don't talk about them like that. They're not here to defend themselves. We're not going to have that conversation. So all of a sudden, that's awkward, right? If you start talking junk about Bob over here and I'm like, hey, we're not going to talk about Bob. Bob's not here. And you try to go back in, I'm going to say, let's call Bob.
Right.
Let's get him on the phone right here, and let's have Bob hear what you're saying, so at least he can validate his point, his perspective. And then all of a sudden, it gets really awkward, and people are like, I ain't gonna talk about other people around Jamie because he'll make it really awkward, and he'll just call Bob out the blue.
Right.
And so then all of a sudden, that filters down into my leadership, filters down into the people, and so now we just fight for unity. And so when something happens now in this season, 18 years later, when something happens now that creates division, 2020 when everything went crazy with, division from politics to racial stuff and everything was just, it felt so divided. Our church felt so unified because it was a cultural thing that we fought for. That I know the world out there is crazy, but me and you, we're good because this is what we fought for in here. And so process, strategy, mission, vision, all those things, amazing. You need all of those things. And you can teach them how to do all of those things. But if the culture isn't healthy, if the unwritten rules aren't healthy, then all of these things will surrender or submit to the culture.
See, I think that's the part we're missing. I mentioned a book that I read about organizational culture. It's kind of one of the go-tos. Everybody recommends it. And the guy said you've got 3 layers of culture. You've got who you say you want to be.
Yep.
As a pastor, standing on the stage, and this is important. I hope everybody gets this. You can stand on the stage and say all you want. We are a church. We're going to love God and love people.
Yeah.
That's what everybody likes to say.
Right. We're going to love people.
And we put that on the wall. You walk in, and it's all over the walls.
Right.
Love God, love people, all over the walls. But your culture is 6 months after that new member comes in. Your culture is who they know you really are, that they've experienced. It's the unwritten rules. And it's going from saying to being.
Right.
How do we go from this is who we say we're going to be to actually being that? And I think that's the great divide there of how do we get that buy-in? Because you're talking about the unity part, right? But culture has so many aspects. Like I'm watching your podcast now, watching your service. It seems like now you're really hammering out a culture of worship.
Absolutely.
And so I look in churches. We've got our culture of unity. You know who we are. You've got our leadership culture. You've got our worship culture. There's so many divisions of that. It can get overwhelming.
No doubt.
And so let's talk. You said you can connect to that young guy. I use this example with permission. I've got a pastor that I'm coaching. He's got 8 people in his church, 8 to 12 to 15, somewhere in there. And he told me, he said, I'm taking a year to work on my culture in my church before I try to grow it. And I think that's great. But if you bring one family in, that culture just changed.
Changes, yeah.
And, you bring another family in, it changed again. And another family in, with every growth step, it changes.
1,000%.
How do we moderate that? How do we stay focused on this is the culture I'm working on right now and not letting that influx or what's a good word for not deflux came to mind. I'm gonna make up a word there. That inflow or outflow.
Words all the time, so you're good.
That inflow or outflow, not change us. How do we stay focused on that?
I'm gonna give wisdom to all of the pastors watching this. I don't think we realize culture flows from us. Mm-hmm. We are the culture keepers. We are the culture creators to where our staff or our leadership will be the culture keepers, mm-hmm. right? If your staff knows you walk in and you're going to blow a fuse if there's trash in the trash can, mm-hmm. your staff will keep the trash can clean because they know the culture is you're going to get upset if there's trash in the trash can. So we are the culture creators for our church. Leadership will be the culture keepers. And so to the pastors out there, I would say whatever you want, whatever you are, let that be the culture that you're creating. Mm-hmm. So I am a worshiper. It is who I am. So 8 people inside of a double wide trailer, I was on the front row, hands raised to the Lord, on my face before God. I am a worshiper. It's who I am. I go to camp meeting, and at our camp meeting, we still have the state council that'll sit up on the stage. Mm-hmm. So when I was on the state council at camp meeting, I'm on the stage. I'm worshiping. Like I am here all by myself, just surrendered to the Lord. It's not a show. I'm not trying to. I am doing that if I'm all alone. Mm-hmm. Tuesday morning, we just turn on music inside of our sanctuary, and our staff just wanders around the sanctuary and worship, and I am on that front row worshiping the Lord like I do on Sunday morning. And so for me, worship is something that is a part of who I am. Mm-hmm. And so the culture of our church is because of him, because of who he is. It's now filtered to the leadership, and it's now filtered down into our church. And again, this is every layer of culture. To me, those people of influence are the ones creating the culture. Mm-hmm. And then you have to be the one that then protects the culture that you're creating and not allow another person of influence to pollute the culture.
So that position of influence, that person you're talking about, that's one of the things we struggle with the most as pastors is the other people that think they should be in charge. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. And I probably should be delicate in some of my conversations. We're both pastors. We're both pastored people. But one thing I love about the Palmetto Pointe podcast is there's nothing off the table here.
Nothing.
So there's nothing off the table today. You know what I'm saying? We're going there. We've all dealt with people.
No doubt.
That, like you said, they're culture killers.
Yeah.
And it is a culture. They want to run the show. They want to do. And I've handled those situations. Other pastors handle them, and it has ripple effects. Mm-hmm. It seems, all right, the kickback you're going to get is, all right, he's got, how many people what's the average?
2,500.
2,500. So what if you make one family mad? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? If one family walks out of here today, never comes back, you're not really going to notice. Now, the type of person you are, somebody here will know, okay? Sure. A guy with 30 people in his church, he's trying to set that culture and set that tone, and he has that bully in his church or whatever that's, like you said. He says, we're not going to be like that. That person walks out.
Yeah.
That has destroyed a lot of smaller churches, or
No
a
doubt.
lot of, and that's where we see, like, when we're talking about doing this, we've got to create that environment. And I feel like sometimes you got to be willing to destruct what's there to construct
1000%.
what you need. How do we have that boldness to say we are not that anymore?
Yeah, I'll say this, and again, having have been where everybody's been, we were running 30 people, and there was a situation where our keyboard player found out that she kind of was having this secondary life of partying and this lifestyle that we didn't know about, and so had a nice family around her, and so we went to her and said, "Hey, surely these rumors aren't true." And she was like, "Oh no, they're true." And we're like, "Well, you can't play keys here, because one of our culture, one of our things is we're going to be righteous. We're going to choose righteousness above everything else. We're going to make right choices. The righteous thing to do here is to tell you we love you, but we can't have you leading in worship and living this lifestyle." At 30 people, that's hard to do. That's a hard conversation to have. But when you have that conversation at 30 people, she left the church, took all the people with her. We went down to 22, and I hate that. It's heartbreaking. As a pastor, you don't want to lose anybody, but protecting the long-term health of the organization for a short-term burden or scab, it's about the long-term vision. I'm going there, and to get there, I need you to be healthy, and you to be healthy, and you to be healthy for us to go there. And the only way for this to happen is if we cut off this or have this conversation that's very difficult.
So it's two guys that are working at helping other pastors do that. You've talked about the people
For sure.
you even talked about how you adopted two churches
Yeah.
to try. I love that.
Yeah.
To try and help them bring their church back and grow their church. How do we help that guy through that season? You know what I'm saying? That is there's so many right now that haven't handled that situation.
Yeah.
And this is where, I mean, that's the meat of the conversation right there, is there are unhealthy cultures, and that guy's going, I can't do that.
Yeah.
It sounds great. I can't afford to lose these people. And I don't think God called us to be mild shepherds, for one thing. I tell everybody, stubbornness is one of the unspoken gifts of the Spirit. All right, you know what I'm saying? But we can't back down from, I hate to use the word fight, because it's not personal. It's a spiritual battle. You know, I talked to Dr. Cutshaw about all of this, about how these are spiritual issues, and the devil wants to come in and destroy your culture, and he will use people to do it, even if they don't know that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
But we've got to instill a boldness in them that, hey, it might not work at that church.
Yeah.
You may make a decision trying to do the right thing and handle a circumstance, handle a situation to get that culture. But it's like we said earlier, people have a choice. It's just like with salvation. They can choose it or not take it.
And in our denomination, we have a culture inside of our denomination,
Right.
where we send these young guys to these churches that are running 30 or 40 or 50 or 80 or whatever it is, and there are culture keepers inside of that church that have been there for 50 years that are keeping the culture of that church alive. It doesn't matter who pastors. My dad was saved at a church called Aner Church of God. It doesn't matter who pastors Aner Church of God. There's a culture that everyone knows about Aner Church of God. They're a righteous, holy church. There's certain things that they know associated with that church. And so we have culture keepers inside of the church, good and bad. That's beautiful and terrible at the same time, good and bad, because then you send these guys there and you say, now go pastor. And if you're not careful, the pastor then has to go and submit to the culture that's already there and doesn't have the influence yet to change the culture, because there's influencers there that have created the culture. He doesn't have the influence yet to change the culture, and what he wants to do seemingly is a healthy move forward, but what it looks like internally is this constant war against the culture of the church. And so to those guys, I would say, to the guys that are living in the culture of the Church of God, I would say, when you go in, like, love the culture that's there. And by the culture, I mean the influencers that are there. Get the influencers connected to your heart, and then help them to see why the shift in culture is important. Because if you can get those influencers on your side, because we are a church that constantly changes pastors. There's very few long-term pastors in our movement. And so we're constantly changing, constantly moving to the next gig. If we're not careful, we're changing cultures inside of a church, then going to the next gig and leaving this church cultureless and dead because we've killed the culture of the influencer that was there. So if you're going in to just change the culture and then moving on to something else, my encouragement would be love the heart of the influencers that are there, pour into them, invest in them, and then allow them to capture your heart and influence their heart, so that as you leave and transition to the next ministry that you're going to, they have a healthy culture left standing.
So that person that's guarding that small church, keeping it alive.
And
So
they are.
They are. And I wrote a book a while back called Don't Push the Chicken. For all the 15 people that bought it, hope you enjoyed it. You know what I'm saying? I've got like 5 sales on Amazon.
love it.
But I wrote a chapter called Roosters. They can be your best friend and can also be great served in a pot of pastry. And I use that, like, there's those people in, I used my chickens as an analogy for churches. Don't take no offense to that, anybody listening. But I had this rooster named Richard. And Richard, every time you walk up, he'd try to kill you. Like, me and my dad, it's a wonder my dad hadn't killed this thing already. And we've got holes in our genes and where he come up and spur us. And my dad was like, we got to get rid of that guy. And I was like, no, he's keeping my chickens alive. Because if a threat comes up,
That's right.
he runs it off.
That's right.
And so a lot of those people that are the culture protectors, like you said, they happen out of necessity.
That's right.
And so there are times they got to go. You know what I'm saying? There was another one called George, and George is no longer with us because he chased my daughter.
Right.
You know, he's a big old blue rooster. We're getting off the. And I looked up and I heard my daughter squeal, and she was in the truck. He had chased her around the trailers, and I was like, "You mess with my family, you got to go." And that happens in church. You got to use wisdom. And so the pastor that said he's got a small amount of people, and he's trying to set that culture. What he's trying to do is get to know the culture.
Exactly.
And that's a lot of wisdom.
That's the wisdom.
And I love that. This is a young guy in his first church,
That's
and he's got a good mentor in his life. Not me, somebody else. I mean, I'm in it now. I ain't talking about me. But he's learning who he can work with and who he can't.
Church planting, you get to set the culture.
Right.
Church revitalization, you first have to gauge what the culture is and then how to tweak the culture to make it healthy. And so I would say to anybody who's revitalizing, step in. And it's easy to say, well, you've never revitalized anything, you've planted. Except for we've taken, we've partnered with these ministries where they are now satellite campuses of us, and we've partnered with them to find out what the culture is. And we've revitalized these ministries. And so the revitalizer out there, first take the temperature of what the culture is. And if there's unhealthy culture, that needs to be addressed. Sinful culture, that needs to be addressed. Gossip, backbiting, if that's culture, it needs to be addressed. But if there's culture that just doesn't fit your style, your ministry, those are the cultural things that you're slow to move towards. You're slow to turn that ship. Sinful, cut that head off that snake immediately. Gossip, backbiting, whatever it is. This is not what we are. But if your heart of culture is, I'm a worshiper, and this is what I'm going to do. We're going to be a church that worships. We're going to be a church that prays. If that's your heart, if that's what you want the culture of your church to be, you were here last night for our prayer service. That's every Wednesday. We have 200 to 300 people show up for prayer every Wednesday. And years ago, it started with one person. Every Monday night, I'm going to show up for prayer. And then it went to 2. And 3 and 4. Every Monday night, I'm going to show up for prayer. When we revitalize churches, the first thing we install, not a service, we install prayer. Right. Hey, we're going to do prayer. At that time, it was Monday nights. We're going to show up every Monday night for prayer. Hey, we're going to do prayer on Wednesday nights. This is the first thing we're going to do. We went and looked at a campus, recently, and I looked at the overseer, and I said, can I just have 15 minutes in the sanctuary just to pray? I just want to pray through this place. So it's a cultural thing. But it started with one person, me, inside of a sanctuary, all by myself on a Monday night. Every single week, I'm showing up here, Lord. So those sort of cultural things, you're setting that in place all by yourself. And then your church will eventually see, okay, he's a man of prayer. I want to be a part of that. I want to see what God is doing inside of his prayer life. How do I get to be, hey, we're having prayer Monday night. Come on, be a part of it. And then all of a sudden the culture, our church is a praying church because the culture has shifted through the years because somebody was passionate enough to chase after it.
Mm-hmm. And I like how you brought out your culture of worship. So when we're pastoring, one of the mistakes I look back and I think I made it mine, I went in with a mindset of who we were going to become. Yeah. And didn't take long enough to say, which I walked in 6 months later, COVID happens.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That changes everything.
Everything.
Who are we going to become? You have to know who you are first. And that's really hard to do when you go for one Sunday, audition at a church, and then you step into the role and you don't even know them. You know what I'm saying? That's if you look back at our process of how we do that. Now, I'm thankful our overseer, we had Dennis Page at the time, and he has a lot of wisdom. During his tenure, he loved to send pastors to a church for 2 months or 90 days. Mm-hmm. Go spend that time there, see if you fit, and at the end, you got a clean break. If you want to step away, no hard feelings.
Love it.
Same thing with a church. That gave us, that does give you a time to
absolutely
to understand that. But I think a lot of guys are going, all right, this is the church I'm going to pastor. Mm-hmm. But then you step in the door, and that's not the church you've been given.
Yeah.
You want to be a worshiping church, and they're a serving church. Yeah. They worship, but serving is their goal, right. or community is their goal. And it's not a one-size-fits-all box.
Right.
And I think we need to write down who we want to be. Just like you said, you're going to be a praying church, so you started praying. You didn't beat them over the head and say, if y'all don't come here, we're not going to do it.
Right.
You just did it.
Just start praying.
And y'all join in with me.
Right.
Do what we're good at, but we're going to add this to it.
We say one of our cultural things, we say excellence. Excellence honors God. Mm-hmm. And so, but that's something that I modeled. I lived this out. I never would allow people to say, oh, it's good enough. Mm-hmm. Good enough for who? Good enough for what? No. We're going to do the best that we can. We're going to do. When we were inside of a double-wide trailer, I used to say, let's prepare like it's Easter Sunday every single week. Mm-hmm. Every single week, let's put everything we can into this service to make sure that whoever walks in, they have the opportunity to find Jesus and not be distracted by all of our hiccups and mistakes. And so we just kind of had this mindset that we're going to make sure everything runs seamlessly as possible, just like it's Easter Sunday. Not so that it's structured in a way, but so there's no distractions, so that people have practiced the song, so that we know that the lyrics are right on the screen and everything's spelled right, and we know that the dates are right on the announcements or whatever it may be. We're going to make sure this service is important because it's important to somebody. Mm-hmm. So we're going to make sure that this service is important. But it started with a small group of people to say, hey, I want to make sure this is important. Let's do everything we can to make sure this is important. To where now excellence is a part of who we are. It honors God. Our doing our best honors the Lord. 1 Corinthians 10:31. Whether you eat, drink, whatever you do it all to the glory of God. This concept that if we're eating and drinking, we're doing it to God's glory, how much more so should we serve or pray or preach or worship or whatever it may be, hold a door open for somebody to honor God, to give God the glory. So excellence is a part of who we are. And it was modeled from a conversation of, hey, let's make every service look like Easter Sunday.
So I listened to the conversation you and Pastor Mo had, mm-hmm. and you were talking about everybody's not prepared for every season.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact wording. It was how he talked about, this didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Like people didn't know me back then. They know me now.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I say this is the great equalizer, right? Because too many guys have a mindset, when I have a worship leader, I'll do this. When I have greeters, I'll do this. When I have all these things, then you got to set your culture now. Sure. I wrote something out the other day. We talked about how I kind of process things by writing. Mm-hmm. And I love how Warren Buffett has a saying of, when it's raining gold, get out a bucket. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, really, I'm walking around with a bucket now looking for that.
Awesome.
Flow. But I think, what if we adopted that as our churches?
Yeah.
Okay? So it might not be your season to grow. The guy listening to this right now going, man, I'm struggling. I can't even get a visitor to walk in the door.
Right.
But when you get that one, What do they do? What happens when they walk in the door? What do they feel? What do they sense? Do they walk in and say, oh, these people will be ready for me next year?
Mm-hmm.
Or this church needs to get 10 more people before they're going to be ready for me? Or does that person walk in the door now and say, this feels like somewhere I want to be?
That's right.
I love the culture of it. I love I used to tell people, I showed them a video at our church. I wanted our culture to be welcoming and greeting, and they were really good at that. I even showed them the video in cars. You know, when they've got Radiator Springs and the minivan comes through town and they all like swarm those people and like, you know, come on over to Flo's and get this and come on over here. And like, that's the kind of culture we want is that welcoming and warm. And you don't have to grow to do those things. You can do that with 5 people and you can do that with 500 people. So how do we get ready? Because that one visitors produce visitors. Growth causes growth, and if you can ever get that one to stick, will cause another one.
Visitors bring everything you need in your church.
Right.
Upgrade in finances, salvations, volunteers, fill in the blank. They're all coming through your door the first time as a visitor. So you better be prepared for them. So again, for me, you are the culture setter. You are the one, the pastor watching this, you are the culture setter. I love 15 minutes before church. This is recent for me. I go into a little room and I pray. This is recent. This is 6 weeks old for me. Mm-hmm. But historically, 18 years, what I'm doing is I am the head greeter. Mm-hmm. I am the person that is in the foyer shaking everybody's hand, hugging everybody's neck. Whenever we were at our other facility, I was outside waving at everybody whenever they pulled into the parking lot, holding the front door open for them, greeting them whenever they walked in. That was my job at the church. I knew visitors walking in were the key to our future. Mm-hmm. And so for me, making sure that you're looking through your church through the lens of a visitor, what are they seeing when they walk in? What are they experiencing when they walk in? And honestly, you'll see culture whenever you put on your visitor glasses. You know, you'll see culture. This doesn't feel right. This doesn't look like us. This experience wasn't us. But to set that culture, it came from me. And then I remember whenever I handed, this first impressions, visitor assimilation type process over to my wife, and I told her, I said, I've been doing this for 15 years, leading this ministry. I can't just give it to anybody. Mm-hmm. I trust you more than anyone in the world. I'm going to give it to you. I need you to keep this going. And it's been we have people, last week we had a church call us from Virginia. Can I just bring my team down there and learn from your first impressions team? Yes. Why? Because it was a culture that we set. Mm-hmm. That we're going to open up our arms and we're going to welcome everybody in. How did that become a part of who we are? Because I modeled it. I lived it out in front of my people to where they said, oh, that's what loving on guests looks like.
Man, y'all lived it out last night when we got here. I just come in and I sat back in the back, watched everything happen, and then we come in this morning. Last night I'm seeing everybody worshiping, and you're like, they really get it. And it's genuine.
Yeah.
And we come in this morning, and your staff's on the stage having a time of worship, and there's nobody here watching.
Yeah.
You're not doing it from anybody. And so that was really cool to see. But becoming that, what you like right now, Easter, everybody's advertising Easter. Mm-hmm. Like, don't let it be a disappointment when they finally walk in the building. They're like, this is not. I remember like back in the 90s, there used to be this club down in Morehead City that always advertised on one of the radio stations I listened to. And you'd hear them talk about it, and you would like, man, I'm talking about clubbing on the Church of God. I'm going to have to turn in my credentials when we leave here. But, they talked about this place, and I was like, man, this place has got to be the coolest, like most lit up, everything. You ride by, and it is a hole in the wall. And you're like, that is not what you sounded like on the radio, when y'all were advertising it. And I worry that we gotta be true to who we are.
Yeah.
Now speak over your church and say, will be this. We might not be that. We will be there, but be genuine.
Absolutely.
Culture, like you said, man, people know when you're bluffing them. Mm-hmm. And so how do you do that with your leadership team? And so I've heard of a lot of churches that are growing churches. They're doing great. And then you hear people from behind the scenes, and you're like, man, this guy's this is hard working mm-hmm. here. How do you protect that? Because it's got to come now, not just from you. They've got to They've got to emanate basically
Yeah.
what you're putting out there.
Yeah.
What is like a culture checkup basically?
So every single week, I have a conversation with every staff member, and I say, "What are we celebrating this week? How are you doing spiritually? And what do you need from me?"
Mm-hmm.
And in that checkup with them, it is cultural conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hey, I saw this week. This didn't align with who we were. Hey, we had a conversation yesterday with one of the staff members, and he said, "Hey, this was said. What do I do?" Okay, well, here goes how we handle it culturally. We make sure XYZ 1 2 3 came up to me after church last night, and he said, handled the conversation and went great. So now we're at a season where they're just coming to me for wisdom for how to handle certain things. There's been seasons where they've sat in with me as I've handled those conversations. Hey, this is going to be a tough conversation, but I need you to know we're protecting the culture. I believe in the local church. So for me, like, the local church is so incredibly valuable and important to the future of the kingdom of God, I think, that I just try to protect the church against everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So I am not only protecting our culture, but the local church, and that means this church, your church, that church, this church. I'm protecting all local churches. We're not going to talk junk about the local church. So for me, anything that is contrary to that, let's have a conversation. Let's protect the local church. And so sometimes it's been them sitting in a conversation with me as I'm having hard conversations. Sometimes it's me stepping into a moment inside of their ministry going, hey guys, just a reminder, this is how we do things. And so you're constantly keeping culture to which then it filters to them to where then now they're the ones keeping culture. But you have to be aggressive at it, and not in a mean way, but you have to be aggressive at it to say, this is who we are, and we're going to do that. My son is amazing. He's incredible.
I've already learned so much from him this morning.
So much. There's moments where we talked about people will listen. They won't listen to bad audio. They'll watch bad video as long as the audio is good. And there's been moments where we've spent hours recording a podcast and the audio wasn't good. And he's sitting back there right now listening to the audio, so he should be tweaking it. And I'd have to look at him and go, hey, man, culturally, we can't put this out.
Right.
And it would tear him up. This is early on in ministry. It would tear him up. And he'd be like, I did all this work. And you're like, I get it. I understand. Mm-hmm. But even my son, as much as this hurts your feelings for me to have to pull the plug on this, I can't put this out for the world because it's not a part of who we are. It doesn't fit our culture to put this out. And so I think I've just modeled it, and then I've allowed them to be a part of me modeling it in front of them to where now they're having the hard conversations about culture inside of their own ministries.
So I'm tying this, as I'm hearing it, I'm hearing accountability.
1,000%.
I'm hearing excellence.
1,000%.
I'm hearing worship.
Yep.
And so one way I want to tie this back in for a pastor saying, how do I apply this? We talked about MVV earlier, mission, vision, and values. Mm-hmm. We love to share our mission statement, man. We craft those things, and we put it on the wall. We want it to sound great, look great. Our vision statement, I don't think we share our values enough.
Yep.
That's how you build your culture.
Yep.
Your culture is built off those values. What do you value? Do you value prayer, worship, integrity, excellence, accountability? And I think we list those things, and we'll go through 10 to 15 values that this is who we are. And I think some of us need to back up, delete 10 of those.
Yeah.
I know it's like, oh man, why are you deleting faith?
Yeah.
Well, what are the 4 things you want to focus on this year?
Yep.
Because you look at everything we've talked about so far. We've talked about praise, excellence, what else?
Unity.
Unity.
Yeah.
All these, you can't do all this at one time.
Right.
Like, you've been at this for how many years?
18.
At the same church.
Yep.
So it sounds like, oh yeah, he's got a great team. No. You had 2018 is a year of unity. 2019, and
Sure.
I can tell, 2026 from my perspective is a year of praise.
Yep.
Or worship, or revival, or you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, what is your focus this year? I think we need to, guys, if you're watching this, slow down just a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you want? Pick one.
Yeah. We call them our foundations. You call them values. We call them our foundations.
Mm-hmm.
These are our building blocks that our church is going to be built upon. And we have 5 of them, and we go over them during, we call it starting point, kind of our membership class. We go over, these are our foundations. These are what we are built upon. And things where our culture is wrapped up in those foundational conversations, our mission, our visions wrapped up in those foundational conversations. But this is who we are. This is what we're going to build this ministry upon. Our first service, our last sermon series leading into moving into this new facility. Our last sermon series, I did a series called Foundations, and I always reference it back now. I say to people in Starting Point, my last series before I left where we were to move to this new big building was on foundations, because I wanted everybody to be able to point back here and say, he's the same guy here in this new season that he was whenever he left there. So when people say to me things like, oh, you've changed, you got a big church now, you're this, that, I always say, no. Go back and watch that series. We are the same church now that we were whenever we left there, because this is who we were built on. This is what our foundations were, and they're still the same thing today.
And it is almost an enigma here. It is the most modern, old school church
Thank you.
I've ever been in. It was, you know what I'm saying, that, and I can see this is who we were, because even in your about section it says we want to do church different.
Yeah.
We wanted to create a different style, and I'll be honest. I mean, that style of worship last night could have fit in just about anywhere, but it just had that modern twist on it, you know, and so that was cool. One thing we talked about checkup.
Yeah.
How do we know that we're meeting this? This stuff takes hard work. It takes time. And so you got your 5 foundationals. We need to ask ourselves the hard questions of why we're doing it. Create an assessment. Like, I always trying to give tools when we do this. And I'm sitting here thinking, how does a guy that's never built an assessment create an assessment of, am I meeting these goals? Man, I know AI is the devil for a lot of people right now. So if you're watching this, and go to ChatGPT and tell it, my organization, foundation, and values are these 5 things. Create me an assessment and grade me of how I'm doing that.
Super cool.
And it will spit out all of these questions, and you can just give yourself a test, give yourself a check or a grade. I think we need to have those checkups.
And then print it out and give it to your friends, your people in your church, and say, hey,
ask the church to take the assessment.
Yeah, take this assessment and let me know how we're doing on this.
If you give them your values and say, these are our foundational values, here's an assessment, people will think they're hitting those marks when they're not.
Yeah.
It's like, I thought I was really good at algebra until I took a test. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got this. I know this formula until I'm sitting down looking at the paper going, man, I don't really know what X is right now. You know what I'm saying? And so we've got to be willing to ask those questions.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the great ways to change a culture, is to bring awareness that we're not who we say we are.
If you give those sort of surveys out and you say, hey, these are anonymous, there's going to come back some stuff that's going to hurt your feelings.
Yeah, be thick-skinned. God didn't call us to be
it's going to hurt
weak.
your feelings, hearing what some people have to say about you or about the ministry.
Right.
So just know whenever you do that.
Oh, it's coming.
There's
some people. Look, we talked. Everything's on the table. I got a lady. I had one want to meet with me a couple months back. I got a concern.
Ugh.
Dude, she brought out a notebook.
Ugh.
And you know, but some of them were legit.
Yeah.
And I had to sit there and like, you know, all right, I got to work on that. Some of them I didn't like to hear, and so we got to be willing to have the. We don't want to hear about our failures.
3 weeks ago, I sent a text out to 5 guys inside of our ministry, pastoral men, and I said, if an angel of the Lord were to appear like they do to the churches in Revelation, what would the rebuke of our house be?
Right.
And 5 guys gave me rebukes of our house. And I had to sit there and go, they're right. They're exactly right. Thank you for this. Thank you for being an angel of the Lord in this moment. Thank you for this. I received the rebuke. Now, Lord, help me to make this better.
And timing is everything. Guys, if you're in the middle, I meet with a group of guys for training. We talked about frustration fatigue, about how often you try to do something and it don't work.
Yeah.
You start the next one off already frustrated.
Yeah.
That doesn't work, and it's a cycle. If you're in the middle of that kind of deep, dark moment, that's not the time. Know when to ask those questions. You know what I'm saying? We got to be. I think we got to have a season of prayer, a season of reflection. Our heart's got to be ready for that, because if not, it'll just pile up. So these are things to do. Do it with wisdom.
Yeah.
Right. So we're wrapping up. We've covered a lot. Anything that you?
I would say encouragement to people. Easter is a pressure test. So just know as Easter's coming, it's going to show you areas that you need to shore up. First impressions, worship, whatever. I need another trash can here because somebody just threw trash out. It's just going to show you areas that you need to shore up. Don't feel like the next week all these people should come back again. It's okay. Easter is a pressure test to see what areas of the pipe are leaking. And so as you're going through this season, allow yourself to see the leak. The water turns off after the Easter season. Fix the pipe, put it back together so that when, let's say, the end of summer hits and everybody's back to school and you start getting an influx of visitors again, that leaky pipe is fixed.
But start fixing it now.
Start fixing it.
Like, you should already have your Easter service planned.
Absolutely.
I think it was you and another pastor talked about different parts. As the Church of God, we love to fix our campgrounds 2 months before camp meeting. That one probably just got me in trouble. But you know what I'm saying? We look at all these things all year long, and then all of a sudden, oh no.
Yep.
I got 1,000 people coming here in 5 weeks.
Right.
Start working on this stuff now.
Right.
If you're going to have that culture of excellence, that's one thing that I'm guilty of. I let slide. A lot of our listeners, including me, were bivocational.
Yeah.
You're working a full-time job.
Listen, I was for 7 years.
Yeah.
I was bivocational for 7 years. 18 years in the ministry, only the last 11 have I been full-time. And so I get it. I totally understand. And I would say pressure wash the church.
Right.
Sweep the front, rug. Vacuum the church. Get some Glade plug-ins and put throughout the church so that it smells good, looks good for people whenever they're walking up. You may not be able to do everything that, the church down the street is doing, but man, make the church look presentable. And then whenever people walk in, smile, hug them, love them, make them feel welcome. It's a game changer.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That lets them know. When we walked in our church for the first time, we walked in and it smelled good.
Game changer.
And you knew that they took pride.
That's right.
In the building. And so those little things, that sets a tone. So, man, I enjoyed this.
Thank you.
I do.
Thank you for hanging out.
I always like to end with a quick prayer.
For sure.
And if you wouldn't mind praying over that pastor right now that is saying, I need to do that.
Yeah.
One real quick, don't do this on your own. This is not something to do by yourself. Too many pastors are on an island right now trying to do this by themselves. I've got a coaching group. You've got guys you're mentoring. If you look across we mentioned the excellent ministers page that I'm apparently famous on. Just throw it in there.
Yeah.
I need some coaching.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you.
Guarantee.
Ask others before you sign on to that one.
Yeah.
But get some help.
Yeah.
Call a mentor and get them to walk through this. You can do this. You can make these changes. If you wouldn't mind, pray over that pastor that is struggling to get the culture in his church right, whether he needs the boldness or whatever the Lord lays on your heart. Say a quick prayer.
Yeah, Lord, I love you. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for every guy or gal that listened to this today. I just pray for strength and encouragement in this season. We've all been there. We know exactly where they're at, how they're feeling. God, I just pray that you would strengthen them and encourage them. I pray that, as David anointed himself, God, that they would in this moment even find the strength to pick up a bottle of anointing oil and anoint their own selves and to be able to press forward towards all that you've called them to be. I pray that they wouldn't get discouraged with the season that they are in, but that they would see the bigger picture that you have in front of them. And God, I pray that in this season that they are in, that as you have birthed things inside of them, that they would start being the influencers in the church that are setting culture, and that it would be a healthy culture that could last far beyond them leaving or them even fading away to glory one day, that the culture of the church would last far beyond their ministries and their influence, that the people of the community would know that this church is a house that lives, chases after you. And Father, I just pray strength and wisdom and guidance as you lead them and guide them, that your Holy Spirit would go with them and flatten hills in front of them, make crooked places straight, and just make it easy to walk after you and to chase after you in everything that they do. In your name we pray. Amen.
Man, this was awesome. We want you to know, look, you're not alone.
Yeah.
We hear so many pastors say that they feel like they're by themselves,
Yeah.
and you're not. We don't do this right here just to build up Pastor Jamie's name or anybody else's name. We do this because this message is important.
That's right.
We invest in you. We love you, and you got this.
Amen.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, man.